All right. What is up, everyone? Welcome to Flat Out Insights. We are so happy to be back. It's been quite a long time. It's been well over a year. So
That's crazy. A
I
whole
know,
year.
I
Good
know. It's
grief.
been
That's not good.
been absolutely crazy. So how you been doing, Michael?
Doing great. Really busy, but pleasantly busy. So yeah, I've been doing great.
Yeah, you look great.
Yeah, I've lost a whole lot of weight, and just both Maria and I have been just trying to get ourselves together, business wise, spiritually, physically, and so far everything's working great.
Awesome. Well, hey, we've got hopefully a really good show tonight. I mean, we're not going to go really deep. If you guys are new to Flat Out Insights, we're not going to go super deep into the technical side. We're going to be bringing back some videos like that um, as the year goes on. Second half of the year, right? Because we're 6 months into this year
Yeah,
already. A
yeah,
crazy year it's been. But we
yeah.
got some really cool shows coming up, some ideas, some different things going on. So thanks everybody for joining us that's out there. I know it's late for everybody. So we truly appreciate it. So if you guys are new to Take on the World TV, make sure you go out there, like, subscribe, and join us for all sorts of different content right here at Take on the World TV. And hopefully this is one of many new shows to come. So no more hiatus, right, Michael?
Nope, we are wide awake now. So I didn't say woke. I said wide awake. So we are ready to go.
Yeah. So it has been quite a year.
Yeah.
Michael, I mean,
Good and bad.
so many things have happened politically. Every
Hmm.
week something changes. We're on the
Right.
brink of a war. Peace comes. Now we're not. Now we're back at it. Life seems to just go ups and downs. Um, so things do look a little bit more. Like there's some hope for, the near the timing. I guess is how we're looking at some things right now. But hey, that can change all tomorrow. So all
Yeah.
we have to do is continue to trust and let him lead the way. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So with having said that, politically, right? There's been so much, but in this topic, um, there's been so much that has happened. Um, 6 months ago, roughly, December, you know, there was the Antarctic, the final experiment that was put on.
I love that title.
Yeah, and that went on. Yeah, right. Like as if any one
Right.
thing
Right.
could disprove many, many different things, and we'll go into that. We're going to talk about that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's so many things to get into, to jump into tonight's episode. I hope you guys are shocked by it. I hope this gets there, because really, what tonight is hopefully really a gut check for all of us, um, and you know we're going to be drawing some lines here on who we've been for this whole entire time, and what I've always said. There's two different groups that talk about our side of the spectrum, what we've done since our days at Now You See TV, all the way through Take on the World TV. Um, there's been two different sides, and we're going to explain that. We're going to go through that, and hopefully put that in a really good, proper perspective of how we respond to things that have happened. So let's backtrack. So this Antarctic trip takes place, and most of the people already started calling for shills. It's going to be fakery. They're already preparing for, the worst of the worst, and everybody that's in on it is it's a scam. So it was already set up that way. Um, then what we learned, what came from it, which was, we're not going to get technical tonight. We definitely have some episodes coming up where we'll talk
Yeah.
specifically about this, and maybe some really ancient information, some Christian biblical information about what occurred, the Arctic summer sun, what
Hmm.
it does. And there's always been some answers that I would say modern flat earthism rejected or didn't know, and ultimately led to parroting information, which I believe has led to the utter chaos.
Hmm.
Out of that experiment, they did see the 24-hour sun. So, if you guys remember way back when, we'd be following Rob Skiba or different people who would show, that the 24-hour sun that was alleged for so many years, the video seemed to be spliced together. There was never a true 24-hour, battery changes, right? We heard all the different things for all over the years, thus saying, that was a complete hoax, because there's no way that a 24-hour sun could take place on a flat Earth model. Thus, it's completely fraudulent. So if we know what happened in that, which everybody's covered it from, people have talked about it, Cansoans, right? There's been a lot of people who've talked about it mainstream, and then plus in our little world,
Right.
we've all known about it. So the 24-hour sun was recorded, that's online, and we can talk about speculation on all those different things. What came from that was the fall of prominent flat earthers, and what came from that was really a lot of things that we're going to talk about tonight, and hopefully get us a better perspective on how we should handle these types of topics, people's reactions to it, especially on this side. Because, man, what I saw from the whole entire thing from the get-go, I saw, and this is my perspective right off the bat, but talking to some of these people after the fact, I think the reaction of the community forced what we saw next. And what I mean by that is we saw the prominent, people. We saw Jaronism. He left, followed by Robbie Davidson, Flat Earth Conference, our friend, Patricia Steer, who, left, much more definitely agnostic on the topic, and then Paul on the plane. And there's probably some other people who've, came and went throughout there, but nobody really prominent. Those were the big ones that, and maybe if I'm forgetting someone, somebody can throw it out in the chat. But those were the big ones. And if you watched early on, the way that all of the information that was being handled was that, Jaron, Austin, these gentlemen who went, they were automatically being called a shill. There was a Vapegate, which was all these ridiculous things, right? You could see his breath. It just starts to get really ridiculous. Things are shot in an Amazon studio. Things that aren't really doing us any favors, okay? So because it must be one thing, because we've already set our stone and our feet in what we call rock, and what we call the model of biblical cosmology, flat Earth, and that we already have an answer for it. Heck, we have an app for it, right? We have the Dave Weiss app that tells us here's all the things. I'm going to stop right before we start, and I'll say this, Michael, is that we do not know everything.
No.
Of God's creation. So for us to be so arrogant to say that we do, already starts our downfall. And that goes for both sides of the spectrum. But I wanted to start there. I'll let you jump in. You can share some thoughts, and then we can really dive in to that very specifically, and then go back to my point of how the reaction of the community almost forced the hand of these individuals to almost ultimately do what they did. And why don't you jump in for a second?
Well, the part when I first heard about it, the Antarctic experiment, first I thought it was cool that somebody actually paid for that. And they all went out to Antarctica. I wish I had been there. That would have been pretty cool. But the fact that the results of that experiment caused not only prominent flat earthers, but people who are the reason why many of us embrace the truth, embrace the truth of creation. And many of those people fell away because of one single experiment. That's the part that really threw me. And the people that fell away from this truth, I was surprised that they did, because they were rocks, and they were foundational in the movement. So that, for one, really, really surprised me. And the reason why they did, even after they explained it, I still couldn't get it through my head. Yeah, okay, I got it. But it's one experiment. It's just one. And one experiment does not cancel the mountain of evidence that supports that. Okay. So I was really,
or to be honest, in fairness, Michael, we could say, when you said supports that, we can say supports something like that, because
sure.
Because all of that it has probably errors in all of that stuff, and we can be completely okay with that.
Sure.
Not knowing something.
Sure.
I'm going to say it like this, for me personally. The results of that didn't shake any foundation for me, because it looks like this. We only can know what the word says, and that's really it. Everything else we can't really know. And we can debate about what the word says. That's another discussion, another topic. But we can get to this point where we can see this from a new perspective, rather than completely going on the defense automatically, like it was almost a defensive attack. And so this is what I saw. CGI, Amazon, green screen, hokery, Amazon Studio, right? We saw all these different things, all these theories. We saw the rise of guys like, there's a guy on TikTok, Instagram, Tyler Hansen. He's known as the fittest flat earther. And
the fittest flat earther?
Yes. And so every piece of content that this individual creates is 100% conspiracy based. So it is Elvis Presley as Donald Trump. It's, and he goes in and shows all the features, and everybody's everybody, and he goes through all these different things, and he's got his information coming out. And funny enough, a lot of flat earthers flocked to him. They worked with him, and then ultimately, he started calling them out as shills. He started going after Dave Weiss. Then Dave Weiss is no longer friends with it. I mean, look, the chaos just ensues in this community, and it's always been that way. But let me say this: it's not just this community. It's pretty much every community, church culture. It's all these different
every cohesive group.
Every group
have
has
that problem.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And so I mentioned to you early on, is one of the very number one reason, if not the number one reason, that people leave churches isn't necessarily because they stumble across doctrinal or theological. Yes, we know that that happens. People leave and walk away from churches. I'm not necessarily talking about that. I'm talking about why young people specifically, walk away from church, and then ultimately have a reason to walk away from faith. The number one reason in every area is how they've been treated. Something's happened to them. Molestation in so many different cases, right? We got church camps. We got Catholic priests. We got the list goes on in this area. It just down to how we treat one another, the hierarchy, the nepotism in these places, the hypocrisy that's repeated. People live one way on Sunday and then live another Monday through Saturday. this is the number one reason people leave churches, and then that gives them the reason to walk away from faith. When and I'm just going to say this, I have not spoken to Jaron, but you look at Jaron's early content that he was putting out right after this was, hey guys, we need to research this. We need to look into this. This is something that we need to spend some time in. I have major questions with this. I lean more flat earth right now, but I'm not sure where I'm at. The attacks happened. And what I know how human nature works, that just pushed him further away. He's like, okay, here we go. I'm done. I'm done with you people. All you people called me.
See, I still don't I understand a little bit more after talking to you about it, but I still don't, part of me still doesn't get it. I mean, so you have all this evidence that supports the reality of creation, but you're going to walk away for two reasons. Number one experiment causes doubt. Okay, I get it. It causes doubt, but it doesn't delete everything else. Number two, some people hurt your feelings. I mean, come on, man.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I understand that. Take a look at Patricia Steer. What happened to her? It didn't cause her to walk away from flat Earth. What happened a long time ago, right? She had all of those allegations that came out against her. She had people saying the worst of the worst. It was awful. Right? If people don't remember that time, it was a pretty bad time. It was a bad guy. You had Dean Odle saying the stupid. Here's a pastor saying the worst of the worst things.
Yeah.
What do you expect somebody to do? They're just going to say, "I'm done. I'm walking away." It didn't cause them to do that, but it caused them to say, "I'm walking away from the toxicity of this community."
Now I can understand that, sure, but walk away from the truth.
Well,
that's a bit far.
Let's take that back to the other spectrum of churches, right?
Okay.
So you start to associate people, Christians, let's say Christians, right? You go to a Christian church, you're hurt by Christians. You start to associate Christ with Christians. It's a natural reaction. And when your hurt becomes so hard, I'm not saying this is what happened. I'm saying this has happened in those settings. I'm just relaying a point that we didn't do any good. The community did no good favors. I would say this.
Mm-hmm.
You look at somebody like Austin who came out and said, "Hey, we need to look into this. This is what I saw visually with my eyes. We need to research this, get some answers." Hey, great. That's great. You can jump in. You can take a year. You could take it 2 years. I would say this for everybody who's walked away, and this is now me going to play on the defense for the opposite side. You didn't come to Flat Earth in just one video. You came to understand.
That's a good point.
You didn't come to it on one experiment.
Right.
You came to it on a multitude of things. So you take a multitude of time to make your decision. That decision shouldn't be made in 30 days, 60 days. But I'm going to pause right there. I'm going to say, but it's their decision.
Sure.
100% their decision. We have no right to jump in and start to say X, Y, and Z about these individuals if they choose that. That's their complete choice. And that doesn't mean they're a shill as well or paid off. Yeah.
Right. But you have to take into account that for the same reason that people were angry when they first found out that people they trusted, respected, and even loved told them that there was an ever expanding cosmos out there. And then when they found out that they had been lied to by these people, they were hopping mad. Okay. For the same reason, you see these prominent flat earthers that helped people understand the reality that they had learned. Okay. That helped them understand the nuances of the lie and the enormity of the reality. Then these people will turn around and say, "Oh, one experiment, yeah, I'm done." Yeah, you got to give them a little leeway because they're going to be angry.
Yeah, let me make it real clear.
Okay.
There's not too many people in the whole situation that I actually agreed with. And then again, my opinions mean almost nothing. They mean squat. They only mean something to me. That's really about it. And maybe in me and
Right.
your discussion. So if you're out, if
Right.
anybody's out there watching, going, who does this guy think he is? He doesn't think he's anybody. But I'm going to say this, and I could get in trouble for this or whatnot. But I was given permission, because one of them I'm still really close with. One of those
Mhm.
guys I'm still really close with. So I got firsthand knowledge on pretty much this whole entire situation that most people didn't. And
Yeah.
because most people refused to either talk to them, spend time with them, see how they're doing. And I will say this, it wasn't, it's not like it was all, flowers and roses in our discussions and our conversations. Um,
Mhm.
and it wasn't all negativity either. It was fine because we were friends. So I'm speaking of Robbie, and I can say this. Robbie didn't give me something to say, like a written thing. But and I would say, and I told Robbie, I think the statement that Robbie put out on Facebook probably left more questions to all the people that followed him, that that feel a certain way, like here's this guy who was
Mhm.
in um Celebrate Truth, all the conferences, right?
Right. Right.
Could be a reason that his information, things that he shared, are reasons that they came to it. Impossible, scientists exposed.
Good stuff, man.
I know people who came in through that stuff, and
Yep.
so does Robbie.
Yep.
So um so Robbie didn't owe anybody else any more of an explanation
Mhm.
because that's his choice. But if he
Sure.
wanted to calm the waters, here's an explanation that he could have made that would have calmed those seas before they started. When Robbie says that he's walked away from flat Earth, it means that he's walked away from everything. And that's simply not the case, right? So Robbie is still a fellow brother in faith. He still
Mhm.
believes in that Yeshua is the way, the truth, and the life, and no
Mhm.
man comes to the Father but through him. He believes that
Mhm.
wholeheartedly. So
Okay.
nothing's changed in that area. Just like if anybody out here goes to a Saturday Sabbath, a Sunday church, and you are underneath a teacher or a pastor, chances are that person is not a flat earther. But you
Mhm.
respect him. You can go to them whether you're getting milk or meat. You still respect that person. Uh,
Mhm.
Throw Robbie in that camp. I put on Take on the World Conference. We had so many different people who didn't believe the way that we believed with astronomy or cosmology or however we want to put that. They didn't agree with those in those areas. And guess
Yeah.
what? We were totally cool. We were totally fine with it. Didn't matter. Did not affect our friendship. Didn't affect the ministry, the purpose of what we were doing. Tom Dunn's a great example of that. Um, Now you may feel differently today. I don't know. Um, so here's what Robbie could have said. Finishing that, his faith has never changed, and right now he is close. He's geocentric. He's
Mhm.
geocentric, and still holds. He's closer to a Dr. Robert Sungenis in his belief systems. In regards of
Okay.
he's not Answers in Genesis. He's not Danny Faulkner. He's not on the side of full-blown heliocentrism. Now, could that change? Could Robbie change? He's admitting, sure, that could change down the road. He's not admitting that it can't. But right now, he's firm in that. And in fact, Celebrate Truth 24-hour stream, which is a video that we all support, which
Yeah.
was Dr. Sungenis' film. Dr. Sungenis just gave him the full go ahead to put the principal in that stream, which
What?
he's never allowed that to happen before.
Right.
Is playing in the 24-hour stream. All these things would have calmed the storm. They also would have calmed the storm if he would have said, "Hey, I don't believe in everything that NASA puts out is real. I don't believe in the moon landing. These are some of the things that he, could have said, which could have weathered the storm, but he didn't have to. Uh, would it have been helpful to a lot of people? Sure. But all of those people, when it was okay to, it's okay to, and Robbie be the first one. It's okay to completely criticize. I'm here on record to say, and Robbie knows this, I fully disagree with his assessment of where he's at in regards to the shape of the earth. I'm completely in opposite ends of where he's at. He knows this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with it. He's okay with it. The conversation still can exist, and it can still happen because we're both on that same playing field. And every time I talk to him, it isn't about trying to convert him back to flat earth, and he's not trying to convert me to the globe. We both know a lot, so we both, can just let it be bygones in 90% of our conversations. So sure, that would have been helpful. Sure, it could have been helpful. If anybody read Patricia's email, it came off as that she was definitely more agnostic in her approach to cosmology. She's not picking a side. But things she did do is that she's walking away from the community, walking away from calling herself a flat earther, and everybody gets completely bent out of shape. Paul is closer to Robbie. I don't know where he is at on the other topics. I don't know if he's still not a moon, after he put out a whole series on that. I don't know where Paul's at on that. I actually haven't asked them that. That would be a question for him. But all of those people have the right to do that, and doesn't mean that they're all paid off. They didn't get cars. And I will tell you, a lot of people got in trouble because of all this. There were lawsuits, defamation cases. There were a lot of things that were said about them that got put out there that put their names in bad lights. We can attack, anybody out there can attack what they believe. When you start to personally attack their name with things that aren't true, well, you may face consequences. So,
I have to say that no, Robbie does not owe anyone any. No, actually, I have to go back on that. When you have a certain amount of influence over a group of people, especially a significant amount, okay, you automatically come into a position of responsibility. And if you turn from what you have been exposing people to and changing people's lives, okay, if all of a sudden you made a complete 180, then I have to say, yeah, you do owe them something. Okay, you still have your private life, you still have your views, how you see things. You're going to base your life on what you've learned. Okay, I totally understand that. But when it comes to those who have admired you and listened to you and shared what you exposed with others and put some weight on it, when you turn away from all that, then you got to say something.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's a responsibility.
And Michael, I don't disagree with you. That is a fine take. I think for most people, especially those that knew these people who left, those are statements that should be said directly to them. We should have all got together and said, hey, if you're walking away, this is what you should do. Now they could take that advice or not take that advice. They're free to do what they do.
Sure.
Controlling what somebody thinks in their brains is quite tiresome. I think every community does it. We could sit here and say, look at the Sunday church. We disagree with X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a point in life where it's like, it's too tiresome to care what they're doing. I need to worry what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to worry about what my family's doing. I
Yeah.
control as a husband and a father of my house. I control, um, that and that alone. I control my
Yeah.
home. That
Yeah.
is.
Yeah. Right.
I am
Right.
not worried about what you think in your head. I'm not worried about what the comments say. I'm not worried about what other people think. And we have to stop that. That mentality really gets us nowhere. And I'm going to throw this out there as well. Um, Sharing information, digging in, all wonderful things. Whether it's a Bible study, whether it's cosmology information, a
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy, whatever it is. If people want to go online, share that stuff, that's wonderful and great. It's when we get to this point that everybody has to act in the same manner. There was a story. Groupthink happens in every area. So whenever one of my critiques of when Robbie came out and everybody was attacking him, and we just fed the Will Duffys and the MC Tunes and some of those guys that were now supporting him, who were in charge of the Antarctic trip and some of these things. They were able to say flat Earth is a cult. Because look at how you leave. If you leave, you're going to get treated like this. You're going to be completely honest. It happens everywhere.
Yeah.
Happens everywhere. You're part of a Baptist church. You leave that Baptist church. I know horror stories because you left and you went to a Southern Baptist church, or you left to go to, a Pentecostal, or you left to go to a non-denominational. Right?
Right.
Those things happen. Mennonite communities. If you shy away from Mennonite or Amish communities, what happens? You get shunned, you get expelled, you get talked behind, and if you don't come back to them with full apologetic back to the belief system and the way of life that they have, you're shunned. This happens everywhere. This isn't something that's just magically because it's flat Earth, like they tried to pose that picture.
Yeah.
And that is one of the biggest things that we'll talk about now. We'll come back to this, is why there's always been a line in the sand when it comes to those that believe in a flat, stationary, geocentric Earth.
Mm-hmm.
There's always been a line in the sand. And although Robbie's conferences brought these two paradigms together, meaning the biblical side and secular flat eartherism,
Mm-hmm.
those lines were so shown to be there. They were dug in so deep. And when we try to run in both circles with people who don't follow Christ and how we operate, this is where this mentality comes from. And then we start to act in a certain manner. We start to act like these groups over here. We follow these ways. Originally, early on, it was everybody was cool with one another because we all had one thing in common. Then eventually, then it was everybody was attacking. Jaron started attacking, right? Christ. Dave Murphy started attacking Christ, right? All of this became a complete attack. Bob Nodell at the end was attacking Christ, right? We had all of these things happening from that side, but it's the actions. It is the complete utter chaos. I mean, we're not too far removed from flat earthers talking about drinking their own urine, right? We're not so far removed from those times. What we didn't have was Bible-based believers talking about that nonsense that were really walking. We had people, I'm going to say, I hate to say it, but we had fraudulent pastors like Dean Odle. Yeah, I said it. I'm not going to take it back. When you just go out there and rip apart everybody else because you have a narcissistic personality, you're false.
And that was such a waste.
You're false.
That was such a waste.
I'm going to say it as it is.
Dean Odle has some good stuff, man. I mean, he has some really well done research, but he had to go get weird with it And you're right, the narcissism just took over, and he got just strange and started attacking people like crazy. And for what? It didn't help him any.
Well,
Um,
it ultimately, if we remember back then, we had Justin, we had Nathan Roberts,
yeah.
and Dean Odell, side by side sidekicks. We had Batman and Robin over there, who
Hmm.
all they were doing was attacking all of us. They were
Yeah.
attacking all of us. I was so happy when they decided that that Roberts was going to put a hit on me, and my wife, and he wrote the whole thing up, a whole post about take on the world and who me, and he's got explosive, he wrote it up that he had explosive stuff on two of the most boring people, me and Liz, and funny enough, he never released it, and soon after that, he was never to be heard from ever again. And so, these guys were doing. These guys walked in their own lane. That is much like how many churches act. How many people out there. I'll give a quick story that I saw, and this is what groupthink does. This is what chaos can do. There was and I'll be a little harsh. There was um, a guy in, I believe, is Arizona. He had Hebrew tattoos, and he believed that pastors that preach Jesus, were antichrist, and so that he did murder one of these pastors and had a hit list to kill 13 more. This mentality comes from the chaos of sacred naming groups, polygamous groups that I'm well aware of, that I've been around, that I've heard, that I know people that are part of these things. All of these different types of Torah-based groups. And I'm not trying to throw everybody under the bus, but this is what happens when groupthink gets too far with crazy lunatic people. Yeah. This is why we have people online right now going to watch this and say the whole Antarctic thing was a complete CGI. You're not doing anybody any favors. I'm sorry. And the answer to solar suns or multiple sun theory or whatever Dave Weiss wants to put out, just to hold on to what's said in his app, to make it, instead of, we should take a look at these things and take some time with this information. Prove it again. Go out and prove it again.
Sure.
We have a mutual friend, me and you, Michael. We have a mutual friend who's reached out to all these guys, by the way. We're going to have him on in a couple of weeks, and he's got information about how they looked at the Arctic sun in the summer and what it does in that small stretch of land that it does it in. And it is well before the 1800s. There's some contrary information that says, hey, we've already known about this. Remember that, like when people said about the Antarctic sun, many people have come out and said, yeah, I was wrong about that. It's because we've all parodied it, and we've all said it. We've all continued. And if we are wrong about it, that's okay. And two, it's because we've never dug deep enough or knew where to look. And so as light comes on, different information, hey, we should all take a look at it. We should all jump in, and explore these things together. And we can go back to Job. Job's a great one here. And I do think it does deal with something with the shape of the earth, or the circumference of the earth. Where it says, God is mocking Job and basically saying, who is taking a measuring tape to the earth? As much as we think we know nothing. The mysteries of God, mysteries of heaven, the mystery of the Godhead are all things that we think we could know. But as much as we claim to know in books, claim to know in our heads, is all Gnostic knowledge at the end of the day. And we're nothing but fools for just continuing parody it. And I'm not saying if we are repeating it or sharing it as the understanding that we know at the time, but to lead with it as all-knowing truth, I think we're doing ourselves a disjustice in how we approach these things, especially things to the magnitude that we have. All we have is low level. In most cases, we have low-level experiments to do. The Arctic one, that costs a little bit more, but ultimately, at the end of the day, weather conditions and all those things played in more into the factor of the cost and the travel to get there than the experiment of holding a camera to the sun for 24 hours. That's not really that cost. It doesn't cost you that much, right?
No.
At the end of the day,
Right.
I know it was an expensive trip. Don't get me wrong, but what I'm saying is these things, we don't have government budgets of millions of dollars. Me and you are two people sitting at home researching things that have been researched, as Rob Skiba would always say.
Yeah.
Looking at these things, trying to evaluate these things, whether it be scripturally, biblically, or even in the case of historically. That's the best we can get. And
even with that, the one thing that I love about what the movement has done is that the little bit that we do know is rock solid, and it is real. It is empirically provable real, and we have scriptural evidence and empirical evidence to support the lack of curvature. There's no such thing as an ever-expanding infinite cosmos. The moon is actually its own light source. I mean, that's just one tiny little list. Let's not forget the historical part of it. So all of that stuff is provable and real. I think one of the problems is that a lot of people aren't satisfied with all of that. I mean, there's a lot of truth there. A lot of people aren't satisfied, and they feel like, and I think this is a holdover from the secular science world. They feel like they need to know every little aspect of this creation. Good luck with that. It's not going to happen. This is a big, complicated place created by one single individual that created it with mere words. How are you going to understand all of it? It will never happen. So I think that's one of the big problems, that people are not satisfied with what we actually have been blessed with.
Yeah, knowing what it's not is oftentimes more valuable than actually knowing what it is.
Yep.
And for us to already have the what it is, I think we're fooling ourselves. We can look at certain things and go, like, let's just evaluate NASA videos. We can look at NASA videos and go, well, they're clearly faking it. Now, for what reason? Is it the Earth flat from a NASA video that shows green screen wires, things of that nature, or things of what you do? I've said this for years, and maybe instead of trying to go up, we'll talk about that. Going up in weather balloons and looking for curvature. That's the next experiment that they're planning to do, which you've reached out to offer maybe some of your services as a almost 40-year professional photographer, videographer with tons of experience. When we look at those things, nobody's ever addressed why NASA continually lies or puts out things or video glitches. That's an excellent one. Or video glitches on video layering. Why aren't they going that route? Why aren't they saying, okay, you know what, guys, we think the Earth is a globe. Okay, here it is. We say that it's a globe. So then why aren't they taking that footage and proving those things to be real? Oh, no, that was a true glitch out, guys. No, there was no video layering. Yet they can't do that.
Yeah.
They can't do that. Those would be things to say, okay, So then they have to ask themselves, well, okay, NASA's not fully truthful, right? If
Mhm.
so then why aren't they fully truthful? So now
Mhm.
you got to come up with a reason. Oh, well, we know why they weren't truthful if we don't believe that the moon landing, because because we were trying to get there before Russia did. Oh, well, we were trying to do this that would get us political power in this area, and this would have
Yeah.
been great for this. You create your own flat Earth is what you're doing. You're creating your own boogeyman is what you're doing. You're creating a reason if you don't believe and fall in line. So here's what it ultimately means. If you believe in the globe, the next easiest progression is, I'm just going to say it, is that you should fall in line with almost every other thing that they say.
Yeah.
Because then
That's
if
the
you,
only logical progression. It has to evolve or descend into that.
right, I saw Matt Walsh and Joe Rogan. They were talking about the moon landing just recently.
Okay.
And it all comes down to it's too big of a conspiracy. We've heard this for years, right? It's too big of a conspiracy, even though Joe Rogan once believed it. Here
Right.
he is. Here's the ironic thing about what Joe Rogan was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Here he is telling it would have to happen on a grand scale, and it's just too big to pull that off. In the 1960s, too big. Today, it would be probably too big to pull off with everybody with cell phones and everybody
Right.
with
Right.
internet information
Right.
and leaks and trolls and all sorts of
Right.
different things.
Yeah.
Back in the 1960s, you didn't have any of that
It
stuff.
was easy,
You had
man.
you had TV, radio, and telephone. That's how information was spread. Okay.
Yeah.
Here he is, ironically, after the height of COVID, which we now can say was it leaked from the Wuhan lab.
Mm-hmm.
The We now know that masks were a hoax. We now know that vaccines are being pooled from children because of either the ineffectiveness or the safety issues, and
Well, outright danger. Yeah.
the lockdowns were a bad idea. Every single thing that they did, which we know was conspiratorial
Yep.
worldwide, and only a few
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
this. Here he is, Joe Rogan, who's at the front lines of those things. Here he is being made fun of on CNN, and they make him his skin look yellow for taking ivermectin. They made him look sicker than he was, right?
That's called color balance, folks.
Right.
Yeah.
So and
Yeah.
he calls this out, but yet he can't see the hypocrisy in his own statement of seeing that the moon landing couldn't have been the same exact thing, especially when you didn't need every single government to be on board with it. You
Nope.
probably only needed a few, and mostly only the heads here in the States.
Yep.
So, in lower level people, I mean, so when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, and I know you got your your Bart's the moon landing guy. He's not a flat earther.
No.
He was on Candace and he talked about that. He did say, I don't know what it is, but I don't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
But they did say on that show that, anything's plausible because of this.
Mm-hmm.
So we look at that hypocrisy of what we're seeing out there. Why won't they go and attack? Here they are again. We put this out to every creation ministry before. Go evaluate these videos and tell us, are they lying or not lying? Christian astronauts, right? We get the answer of where they're at with the ISS. They're up there doing this. We get all these Christian ministries to go support that. But when we show them very reasons why we don't trust them,
Right.
very reasons like, Michael, you've done it here before. You've broken down the Hubble telescope.
Yeah.
And how everything that they do with that in the imagery that they put out there, it's all fraudulent. It's all fraudulent. You've done it since day one.
Composited stills, which is pretty funny, man. My granddaughter could do it.
And so you have to ask yourself, why are they doing that? So I'm giving you a playbook to tell, to continue. If you think the next thing is what about the curve, go after what the real things are, is why the propaganda is pushed so heavily and it falls so let's say it falls so flat. All of that information really does fall flat, and it doesn't hold any scrutiny. So they're left with mathematics and books, which we know math doesn't lie, but the premise of the math doesn't always tell the true story.
Right.
And again, the 24,900 circumference Earth that God says you can't measure, somehow
Right.
answer for it.
Right.
These are some of the things that need to be addressed. And so if you guys are ever watching this, I think we start there. Maybe you bring on a guy like Michael, and you guys start breaking some of these things down, some of these videos, some of these things, some of the clear fakery that NASA has been doing. Bare Naked Ladies, which was singing with the astronaut on the spaceship in harmony with a 10-second delay. Or no, it's a longer than 10-second delay, right? And singing perfectly in harmony. Tell me how that happens.
Right.
Right? Unless it's
so obvious, okay? But it would be a better use of time to explore that and tear it apart. And quite frankly, it'd be a lot easier than going, and I'm not down in the whole Alaska thing, okay? But what you're saying would be a much more efficient use of time and more profitable, because ripping that stuff apart would help a lot of people understand reality.
Right. And if there's somebody who believed that Doge was a good idea of company fraud and abuse and waste,
yeah, right.
Well, if NASA's getting the billions of dollars that it's receiving, and that's what they're pumping out,
over $65 million a day, that's crazy,
and that's what they're pumping out.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should, even people who believe in the globe should be saying, no, we need to question this.
Yeah, Doge is not going to touch them. It's not going to happen.
Of course. Well, maybe it's now because Elon and Trump don't get along. So,
okay.
Yeah. Okay. They were going to try to get along. Now they're back not getting along again.
Okay.
And Trump just said, I'm going to, maybe I should bring Doge at him because, Elon gets a lot of money from us, from the government. I think that was a threat.
Yeah.
So I want to be clear on this again, is that this is where it comes back to, and this is, like I even wrote on Facebook, it's like, you can hate me now or hate me later. It doesn't matter. There is a line in the sand.
Mm-hmm.
And people who believe in biblical cosmology, that split's been gone a long time ago. It started off early. We've been around the block for a long time. Michael, we're not like, Eric DeBay, OG, but, from all the new people that are, super TikTok famous, all these flat earthers who are up there getting millions of views, we're getting like 6 views, So, that's all right. That's okay.
Yeah.
But, we've been around the block. Our show started basically at the end of 2016. So we've been doing this, a while.
Yeah.
And so
actually, we've been involved in it since 2015.
Right. So it's been a while, but we've been doing this, since that time when we started on IUC TV. That line was always there. And we just refused. Many of us didn't want to believe that there was a line that was existing there.
And you know what? I understand part of the reason why too, because you got this giant movement all over the world, and for a short period of time, all these people were as one. And it was pretty attractive. I must admit, I have never been a part of a group like that. In my entire life, I've always been a bit of a loner. So, you go to the conferences, you have flat earthers and enclosed cosmologists banding together. And it was pretty cool. And I must admit, I'll miss that. I liked it.
Right. And so what was the next realm that we saw? We saw the idea of New Ageism brought into this multiple.
Yeah, it was inevitable. It was inevitable.
And then we always said, there are no atheists on a flat Earth, right? And it must mean there's a creator. Then we definitely saw the rise of of, not necessarily atheism, but
No.
for sure as agnosticism, for
Right.
sure completely new age, multiple God, parallel universe theories, all these things that started to come, full
Right.
circle in there. And it all started pushing further and further away of the cohesion. The Bible is a cool one-trick pony to a lot of these people who will say,
Yeah.
and the Bible teaches it, right? That's how they would use it. And I'm not, and whether that's, guys like Mark Sargent, or that's, who sort of in a sense refuse to talk about the God that he believes in, but would say he believes in God, for many years, even pushed on it, you just wouldn't really get the answer. But that line has always been there, and it is there in the regards of the actions. Look, I would say this: when we had a really tight knit group of us, it included Robbie, it included Rob Skiba, included Nate Wolf, it included Chad Taylor, it included Daryl Lee, included Rick Hummer, included there was we were all, there was a tight niche within there, and then there was the guys off on the side, your Dean Odles and your Nathan Roberts, who ultimately had complete disdain for us, for various reasons, all different reasons. You can pick one. And so that became extremely fractured. Rob Skiba, I will say this, and Rick, Rick was accepted in both sides of the spectrum.
True.
But it was really Rob who had the full respect of all sides. We were just a bunch of like Bible people who talked about stuff. Yeah. We, early on we were on Now You See TV doing great roundtable shows.
Sure.
Guys like
Those
Jake
Grant
and John Founders and everybody.
Yeah.
So, but we already knew then we were different than everybody else. And our actions needed to reflect that.
Yeah.
Not, let me say this, what became so exhausting over the years, sitting back watching after, our little group just like went away. Nate Wolf got a job. He stopped doing content. You started working more.
Yeah.
My conference, just like God shut the doors, Chad Taylor had issues in his life. He had to walk away, and then the passing of Rob Skiba, right? There were so many things and layers that just happened. And, Robbie stopped doing the conference, right? So there was a lot of things over time that, that just like sort of disbanded like this little group that we had, where we could always bounce things off of, whether it was text, texting, group text, doing shows together. So this was, that was what I would call as the good old days for us.
Yep. I totally agree. Yeah.
Because all of us, as much as I know Rob had cohesion with all of his friends that were over there on the other side, and he was able to witness a lot of those people. He had their full respect. He was Rob Skiba.
Yeah.
But I know he felt the most home because we all were like on one page, like almost everything. Like we were all on one page.
Yeah.
When it came down to that, and like, because Christ was the center and Christ was that focus. And I think the only way for, biblical cosmology, biblical astronomy, whatever terms we want to use, enclosed cosmologist, firmamentalist, whatever you want to use in this regard.
I never heard of that one.
Well, that's Sean's, so I can't feel that. Okay. I think whatever it takes in this next era of those that claim Christ in this, we have to reflect them in how we respond to the chaos, to the complete chaos that occurs, because that other side that does bring information, does do experiments, does do this.
Sure.
I mean, I will say this. Friends of mine that I would call friends, that if I saw them, we
Mhm.
would probably talk for hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm saddened by some of the things I see online. I'm saddened by some of the things I see online.
Yeah.
The whether we think Robbie's right or wrong, how we respond as believers to him publicly when we don't reach out to him privately,
Mm-hmm.
it's not a good look. It's
Yeah.
not a good look. It's just not a good look. And I can be friends with Robbie right now, and I can say, Robbie, I don't agree with you in this at all.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Robbie will say. Okay. One day we'll dig in and we'll talk about it. Okay, today's the day. Today is not the day.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. But how I see we respond to one another, I think that comes back to it, is how we will know if we are his is how we treat one another. I mean, this becomes so simple, guys. If we claim Christ and we're in this weird little fringe community,
Mm-hmm.
we don't take on new things because we have a weird thinking about the shape of the earth and cosmology.
Mm-hmm.
We carry those other things first and foremost. So it's how it will dictate how we respond. It dictates how we treat one another. Yeah, you know what? I said some things that maybe I shouldn't have said tonight. But some of those things I was really sick of as other believers. When I called Dean Odell a narcissist, we lived through it. We watched how he tore down each and every one of us down to and I won't mention all those things. This is a call. He can come right back and say, guys, I was wrong for this. You know what? I had to give Doug Hamp a lot of credit. If anybody remembers, Doug Hamp and Rob Skiba had a show together called Quest for Truth.
Mm-hmm.
It was such an awesome show. It was so amazing.
Yeah.
Both of those guys together were so dynamic.
It was.
And you could just see the friendship they had for one another. And when Rob started thinking, hey, you know what? The earth might not be a globe.
Yeah.
Things took a real dark turn real fast. And it got really ugly.
Rob said, if you want to see someone's inner demon come out, tell them the earth is flat.
Yeah. And so and we've had Doug on this channel multiple times, even in my hiatus. Jeff Brandon's had him on. So I'm not throwing shade. This is a human reaction, right? He completely, totally different agrees with Rob. That's totally okay.
Sure.
I never thought it was okay that they lost their friendship over it.
Yeah, that's going a bit far.
See, that's what happens. We go to these new levels of how certain things occur, right? And so, I brought Doug to the conference because I believed in a lot of things Rob or that Doug was teaching. A lot of great presentations, a lot of really good information. As you know, you were there. It got you almost debated him live.
Almost.
It got to a point to where after the conference, Doug had some really unkind things to say.
Yeah.
He defriended us. Still to this day, it still holds because we never responded.
Yeah.
But to his credit, he has later since come out and said, this isn't a topic like I did, and I have to, apologize for how I treated certain people after the fact, right? Some of these things that we did after the fact, especially when Rob passed away, easy for us, it's like, we have a big fight with a family member, and I think you might have gone through something like this where you weren't seeing eye to eye with one of your brothers, and what happened, Michael? You get the call that he's passed away. And after that fact, now what do you want to say about your brother? All the good things about him. You don't want to remember what you guys had disagreements over. Some of the things that he believed that you vehemently disagreed with him on. You don't
Right.
want to remember that stuff. You want to remember who your brother was, who he was when he was a kid, who he was when you
Mhm.
guys were at your best, right?
Right.
I'm going to say this. It shouldn't wait until those things happen when somebody passes that we should respond those ways.
Hmm.
So I'll publicly apologize for calling Dean Odell narcissist right now. I think he can be redeemed in that area. Um, I said I'm a nobody
Hmm.
until people humble themselves as a nobody and say the only thing that I am is a child of God, and only greatness or goodness that can come out of me is what He allows and what He.
Indeed. Indeed.
And when it does happen, I don't take any credit for that. Okay,
Hmm.
and it's far few between. Okay, so that doesn't happen very much with me. So it's far few between. So I'm not saying I haven't done something or he hasn't given me a word or something. I'm not saying, you know, that's never happened in my life or I've said something so profound on one of these shows that, of course, it doesn't happen. Most of everything I say is ramblings and incoherent sentences. And we are to quote Billy Madison, we are dumber for hearing it. Approach.
That's a really good scene.
Yes. I watched it, of course, because I don't really remember, but we do know what he said there.
Yeah.
Until we have that humbleness, until we do those things, especially when we're talking about a topic that is out of our scope and out of our realm.
Hmm.
And look, you can have all the book knowledge, and I'm going to tell you this: it is out of your scope and out of your realm.
Yeah.
You could have gone up into space, and it is still out of your scope and out of your realm. Until you are the creator, it is out of your scope and out of your realm. It is out of all of our scopes and out of our realm. Can we get glimmers of truth? Can we get glimmers of things? Can His Word teach us things that we can
Sure.
hold to? Absolutely.
Yep.
But it doesn't mean that we have all truth, all knowledge, and even all context. Because guess what? We didn't live at those times to understand or gain all of the context in the context of when it was written, how it was written, who it was written to, who it was written for. Now, there's so many anomalies with some of that information. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So I think we've beaten that to death when it comes to what we are,
Yeah.
right? I originally wanted to title this show, why I'm no longer a flat earther. and, and, and people have gone, no,
That would have got a lot of attention coming
yeah,
from us.
yeah. And we would have just become the new Robbie Davidson, right? But look, flat earthers are falling completely flat. The chaos that I see out there, everything is a conspiracy. Everything is, I already have the truth and the knowledge. I already know this. I mean, somebody's going to take a picture of this blue screen because the blue screen doesn't work for whatever reason. They're going to do gematria on it. Then they're going to be able to get their number, how much of an insider Illuminati that I am, based upon information or whatever. I'm wearing a T-shirt. It's got some letters. They're going to figure out what these letters mean. Each of them have a thing, and boom,
Sure,
they're
gonna look at some stuff on my shelf and say,
yeah,
"Okay, wait,
right."
see that book." Right.
And this doesn't win us any points. This isn't helping the truth. So all of the chaos, this show included, doesn't lead people to the truth of the word. So if what we're here is biblical cosmologist, astronomist, whatever term we want to use in this regards,
Mm-hmm.
if we're not pointing people back to the word and back to Christ as our sole mission, then what is the purpose, right?
That's the beautiful part about the flat Earth reality, is that it does lead straight to the inerrancy of Scripture. It leads straight to the reality of Christ. It's like a spiritual domino effect. And if we don't use that tool, then what's the point? I have never been a person that witnessed to people, not successfully, okay? until 2015. Then it was so much easier, and it still is. You know, especially when people say, well, can you prove to me that God exists? Now that's easy. That's simple now. Okay. So if we can't use this reality to lead people to saving grace, because it always ends there, saving grace, then what's the point?
Yeah. And ironically, this topic oftentimes is about anything other. For when they came back from the Antarctic trip, if you would search Flat Earth videos, you would see more videos on Jaron and Austin and how much of a big of shills they are than actually content and information about Flat Earth. Well,
yeah,
it's so counterproductive. It wasn't helping the cause. All it would make people look foolish. And then when people had to like post photos, post videos, and then other people go, well, I'm gonna have to take that down. Now I look like a fool for doing that. Now they're coming out with that. So, and let me give. Okay, I'm going to talk about groupthink for a second. You know, me and you, Michael, maybe we don't have the pool to get groupthink. Nobody thinks like us. Okay. And that's cool. I'd rather have that, because if anybody really thinks like me and I lead people to think, I'd really have to question, you know, that person. Like, but there are really good people out there who are very smart. You know, one of our friends that we know who has a channel, Kingdom and Context, Sean Griffin, right?
Oh, Sean? Oh, Sean's a genius, man.
Sean's a very smart guy, right?
Yeah.
He's got that. He's got that pull. I'm just going to say it like this. I guarantee you, if people are honest with themselves and they first saw, you know, CGI videos, like, oh, all that was fake, you know, Austin, we know it was fake, or the shadows, we see the shadows, and look at this, oh, that was all fake. When Sean goes on and says to Will Duffy in their video, he says, I was wrong about what the sun does in Antarctica. I'm going to tell you this, and this has nothing to do with Sean. Now, it's partially because Sean's smart, but partially because it's called groupthink, okay? And I'm not picking on anybody here, but what I'm saying is, I guarantee you there's a large group of people who first saw that other information and ran with that, but then once Sean said, no, I think I have to admit that I was wrong, and the sun does do that. After speaking with Austin and Jaron, I've come to the realization that this does occur. Guess what all of those people did? They switched to Sean's thinking. Guaranteed it, 100%. It's called groupthink for a reason, and this is what social media has caused. It's done. It's why when the political news of the day comes out, you'll see when Trump took out the nuclear plants. Well, guys, first and foremost, nuclear bombs don't exist, right? So we have to overcome that. Once we overcome that, then we know that, you know, all of it's a set up. It's all fake, and Iran didn't have nuclears. I'm throwing out all the conspiracies at you. So, you know, and I'm not denying that there could not be something there, but what I'm saying is, when does it end? It doesn't end, right? So, but what was the groupthink there? He bombs Iran. World War III is coming. Here's all the Christians. I see all the posts. World War III is going to happen tomorrow. Buy food, do this, prepare, blah, 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 right? So then everybody runs with it on Facebook. And then the peace deals come. And then the peace deals are broken off like 12 hours later. Now the peace deals are here again. And now everybody's like, see, look at Trump's great. Oh, no, next week Trump's bad. And these are conservative people, right? So we're not talking about liberals who hate Trump. This is how groupthink, this is how everything works out here. And until you realize it's every topic, it's every single thing.
And you know when it started? Peer pressure in high school. Oh, heck, peer pressure in elementary school. When people are affected by what other people think, and they guide their actions based on what people feel about them, ergo peer pressure, then they keep that foolishness going until they're adults, and then you end up with groupthink.
Right. And so right now, either we're living in Q right now, you know, with Nasira and Jasira and all these different things. And that's why, we had more jobs that came out, and right? So I mean, and that's an old conspiracy, right? Well,
Yeah.
JFK never, Junior, or RFK Junior, right?
Yeah.
Whoever the one that was dead that was supposed to come back, right?
Yeah. Right.
Parroted information, weak-minded individuals, and I'm
Yeah.
speaking to all of us. We all can be victim to this type of stuff.
Mhm.
What is the solution to this? That we stay firm fixed in him. The Spirit will guide us to truth. The
Yep.
Spirit will guide us to discernment.
Yep.
Discernment isn't given, okay? If we are in disobedience, don't expect to have great discernment.
Right.
If we are in disobedience, don't expect the Spirit to guide us. If
Mm-mm.
we are in disobedience, don't expect for our takes to be any good, i.e., me, right? But hopefully, I have a glimmer of something when I say that, even when I'm disobedient in certain areas of my life,
Mhm.
that at least I can recognize and come. And I think that's the beauty of this walk, Michael, is that even when we fall, through our repentance of us understanding what we have done,
Right.
he grants us that grace, which is a beautiful thing, right? That
David, I mean, that was the whole key. That was the key to David's influence with Yahweh. That's why he was a man after Yahweh's own heart, because once he realized he did the wrong thing, he repented immediately. And that was the key to David's power.
maybe not exactly immediately, he took a little bit of time, but it was pretty close. It was a lot closer than
Yeah. And it
um,
was consistent. Yeah,
it-
I agree. It wasn't
yeah,
immediate, but it was pretty quick, Yeah.
yeah, because he could have saw Bathsheba and said, okay,
Yeah,
there was
yeah,
my
yeah.
sin, and I don't need to do anything more.
Right.
So I think when we look at online teachers, YouTube videos, because we've come from this world for so long, we got people who have propped themselves up, um, purposely, unpurposely. People have gained great followings because they put out great info.
Sure.
Um, me and you go on here because it's therapeutic for us to talk. We don't gain big crowds. Okay.
No, no.
Some people have that gift. Rob Skiba had a gift. You know.
Indeed.
You know. Certain people have the gift. They go on and they talk and they gain a huge audience.
Right.
And sometimes they don't even want that. It just happens because of how God has, given them, skill sets and things that He's blessed them with, and sometimes this becomes very natural for some of these people,
Yeah.
and some of the things they say they resonate with, and it really hits. But whether it's purposeful or unpurposeful, we have to guard ourselves on the group think and the mob mentality of just blindly following people. Right now, there's people on both sides of the spectrum who blindly follow Mark Sargent, who blindly followed, let's just say it, they blindly followed Celebrate Truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
followed you name it. They followed these people. They follow Will Duffy and MC Toon.
Yeah.
Follow non-flat, or they have their channels. They have these people, these things, right? And so then they find themselves in these little circles, and those people become their teachers, their mentors. That's how internet fellowship world, ministries, just whatever. And I mean, look at, here's a great example of it. Owen Benjamin gained such a huge following. The people call themselves Bears after him.
Are you serious?
Yeah, they all have their nicknames because of what because of their like little club and their little group. And I'm not dogging.
Okay.
Look, I'm
That's
not
kind of
dogging.
creepy, dude.
Everybody sort of has their own little niche on what they do. Look, we came from Now You See TV. and no shade at those guys. They have 150, 250,000 followers, and every single thing that they put out, there are people who defend every single thing that they do, or there's people who try to pin them against each other. One will say this, the other will say this, and so you see this ultimately is no different than churches. This is ultimately is no different. I hate to say this, and I hate to be rude, but this is no different than what we've seen with cults that have mass suicides.
Yeah,
and I am not comparing any of those people to that. I'm giving how human beings act. There are so many people are followers, and and I'm not saying you can't follow people.
Sure.
To listen to people. You can't say, hey, this is my favorite people to listen to.
Sure.
But everything that they say must be scrutinized, especially as a believer, through the Word of God, through testing it through the Spirit. Right. And if you don't, you're foolish. And there's so much foolishness to that. And oftentimes, Michael, let's be honest. We've had more times in our life where we've spent more time listening to things about the Bible than actually reading the Bible.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. I mean, our whole channel was based on that. We're not reading the Bible. We're talking about things in the Bible or around the Bible or centered around the Bible. So when the spiritual life is completely misguided and it's off, when we hear good things, we just flock to good things. Oh, that sounds really good. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to listen to this. There's whole sects and whole groups. And I'm not going to throw people under the bus, but I'm going to a little bit. Groups of people who pack up bags, leave their jobs, go move to specific states, join commune type of places, and find themselves in.
I have family members that have done that.
And then they find themselves in hardships after 2 years because it wasn't cracked up to everything that they thought it would be. And everybody's scratching their head going, it's because you didn't have discernment when you watched the YouTube videos that led you down the path to get to that. And then ultimately, what did they do? Look, every group has horror stories. On our Sound Off show, and I told you this story this week, right? Everything. There's so much ugliness within the body of Christ. It's sickening to even want to surround yourself with a lot of fellowship, especially if you have children. Some of the things that happened, in the past couple weeks. We had lead singer of the Newsboys, former DC Talk, Michael Tate, CCM, Christian music staple. He's created, part of the song "God's Not Dead." The movies "God's Not Dead." Huge, millions and millions of dollars were made off of that song and the movie series, which spawned, I think, 3 or now going to be going on 4 films, which is an apologetic, telling people that God's not dead. The guy that sings it is a self-admitted sexual abuser, cocaine addict, and recent information, which is alleged of pedophilia. Or preterist activity. Let's put it that way. Michael W. Smith got in trouble last week. Michael W. Smith praised a camp called Camp Conocook, and he wished them a happy birthday and all the years that he was there. Here he is. Worship Again drops in, which became one of the biggest albums after 9/11. Michael W. Smith was already a huge staple in the Christian music world. And then when he created his worship albums, took him to a whole nother platform and in a whole nother realm, which is probably where we're at today, 25 years later, why the music industry still pumps out music the way that it does based upon the response to that record. Praising this camp, which has at least 14, I counted, convicted pedophiles who were camp counselors, is that the camp counselor owner knew these things well in advance of the sexual activity that was happening there with the counselors and never fired any of them, never reported any of them. all swept under the rug. This happens in major churches, small groups. And guess what? It happens in Torah circles. So this isn't getting off the hook. We know, we have personal stories on all of this stuff happening. This doesn't, so stuff like this happens in flat earth communities. Stuff happens like this in all of these things. And this is what happens when we are, I hate to say it, but when there's organization to things, when there's hierarchy, and really when there's one thing involved, and that's money. When money gets involved, it muddies the water. And I'm not saying that ministries, I'm not even saying flat earth YouTube channels can't operate without money. I'm not here to say that that's not prudent, but what I am saying is that it muddies the water in most of the cases. And I have a little bit too much information, and I'm not going to share it.
Okay.
When it comes to some of the things that I know in regards of, let's just put it, there's a lot of muddying of the waters on both sides of the spectrum of biblical cosmology and flat earth. And there's money involved that has muddied the waters on both sides of this, both sides that do not allow for real discernment to ever take place in some cases. And that's why I think in a lot of places in churches, why discernment's not welcome, why discernment is frowned upon, because when there's somebody in charge or somebody's son in charge, and they're the pastor's son, right? And you know something, but you can't say something. They're a Christian artist. His name's Corey Asbury. And after the whole Michael Tate thing came out, he said, this was Nashville's biggest secret. This was the Christian world's biggest secret. We've all known this for years. There's blood on the hands of all these people who knew this stuff. And this is why.
See, my problem with that is that these people claim to be sold out for Christ, right? They are absolute Christians. But the only reason, one of the main reasons, and you mentioned the money, one of the main reasons that they don't bring these horrors to light is because of money. They don't want their career ruined. They don't want their position ruined. They don't want. So why do you worship Christ again? If you can't stand on the truth no matter what, because the Bible says be steadfast. If you can't stand on the truth no matter what, then what's the point? Then I question, and I dare question their Christianity. If their main concern for not telling the truth and not bringing those sins, which are hurting other people as well, not bringing those to the hierarchy so they can deal with it. If their reason for that is money, then I question their Christianity.
Yeah. So when, and I'll draw this all back. When we look at all of these things, all these negative things, all the different, if you look at Christian world, it could be theological disagreements, arguments. Everybody's debating one another. Everybody's fighting, bickering, name defamations on every case. Look at what this pastor did. Look at who they are behind the scenes, right? This all kind of takes place. But I'll say this. So if we bring it back full circle, back to cosmology, what we've seen and why so much is falling flat. What's a proper perspective when we see all of this chaos that occurs? We stand still, we stand firm, we take time before we respond. This is why we're doing this episode in June. Why we didn't do this in the week after Robbie and Jaron and all these guys did this,
that's too early. It's too early.
Let the smoke clear, let the emotions die down.
Yeah. Let things settle
and come with like some type of form of steadiness to say, where do we go from here? Right. And I think the only place that this biblical cosmologist side can go is get rooted back in the word, get rooted back in all the basics, how we respond to one another. There's whole channels out there that have taken this topic and, as Christian believers, Bible-based, Torah-based, whatever, there's groups of pockets of people with this topic who say it's salvational. Like, if you do not believe this, it's a salvation issue. You know, because you don't interpret Genesis properly, because of this, you don't trust the word, thus, reductive reasoning, that there is no salvation present. Now, me and you will agree that this topic can be salvation aspects to it, like it can lead people.
It can lead a person to, yeah,
Correct,
it can lead
but
a person.
it's not a foundation.
No, it's not. No,
It isn't foundational. It
no.
isn't. And so when we respond online to unfoundational topics that cause us to lose, which, like I said, is embarrassing. Some of the things that people are saying is embarrassing.
Yeah.
There's proper rebuke.
Mm-hmm.
And look, Michael, I'm going to say this to you, and this isn't because you're on the video. I went back and read as much as I could find on some of the things that you wrote. So you comment on one particular person's post. And I felt yours was proper rebuke. It wasn't name calling. It wasn't this. It was proper rebuke from your perspective. It was your opinion through your rebuke of what you feel. And I feel that is how we can respond. Rebukement is fine.
Yeah.
We are walking, and we could be wrong in our rebuke. If we go, hey, like, some people are going to watch us and go, Chris, you're dead wrong in this area. Okay, rebuke me. You're either right or wrong. You could be, and it's for me to take what you say and either pray on it, look into it, and apply it, or say, no, I don't see it. I don't see that rebuke. Then I see other people. It goes far past rebuke, straight to, here's who you are. This is what you've done. I mean, look, there was a lot of really funny stuff that people have done. Lots of really great memes that we won't share. These guys, it was hilarious. There's a lot of really funny stuff.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, do we only care to tear down one another rather than to even think how this might be affecting that person and more importantly, also their family, children, right? How is this going to affect, things that is said about them taken by their family, that they all have to see these things. And they say, hey, this is, and if you go back to the show, you see, hey, everybody could do things a little bit differently or better. But those are their choices and their decisions, right? And how everybody responded to this stuff. I've just seen so much ugliness out there that for so long, certain things, maybe we're going to have to speak up a little bit. I was probably, maybe I have some deep wounds on how I watched. And I'll be honest, I have wounds for Rob Skiba. Because I had to watch him cry. I had to watch him be hurt repeatedly by everybody for many years, going back to second incursion of the angels and the size of the Nephilim giants, and to cutting him down for Torah topics by prominent speakers that were his friends. Then it led to he done just about lost everybody when he came over to Flat Earth.
Yeah.
And then he started to lose everybody again when he said, hey, you know what? Serpent seed doctrine, Zen Garcia's making a lot of sense. I'm okay. Now he lost other close friends.
Yeah.
Every move he made it wasn't just, hey Rob, I disagree with you. Hey Rob, this. It was, I'm coming for you, you heretic. That's what it was. You are no longer a friend. You are no longer a brother.
Man,
You're
it's embarrassing.
and so personal conversations, speaking to him in private, in person, having him cry, and just be so hurt by other people. And when Rob never wanted to hurt a single person, he was feisty.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
He was feisty.
Yeah.
You know, if you attacked Rob is not going to shut up and just let you just blatantly attack him. He's gonna come with receipts. He's gonna, at least when he did his Theologians Gone Wild videos.
Yeah, I remember those. Those are great.
All attacks on Rob Skiba.
Yeah.
He didn't come back with, hey, Steven Anderson, you're a fool and idiot. You're a moron. Hey, Michael Heiser, he would refer to himself as the village idiot, right? This is what Rob did.
Yeah.
But he brought the receipts to say, here's why you're wrong. Here's why you're wrong, Michael Rood. Here's why you're wrong, creation guys. Here's why you're wrong, this. After all they did was tear him down. It was, you're this, and this.
Yeah.
But he brought his receipts. He brought it with feistiness. And that was something that he did definitely want to work on, and sometimes online with people, his responses were short, especially towards the end, because the man was fed up. And I think we all will get to that point. We're only human.
Yeah.
And I'm not, I probably have those wounds for him because he's not here, right? I didn't carry them when he was here. He was a grown man. He could do it himself.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But now that he's still here, and now that we have to hear lie and lie and lie, still, people will still spread lies about him. I had to go on a defense with somebody who was spreading lies about him, that this man was a multimillionaire and what his net worth was, and spreading these lies and these rumors, which negated everything he was saying. And there were people, because of internet groupthink, were actually believing what this man was putting out. So what do? I get on the phone with this guy and I let him have it. Have it, and say, everything you're saying is a complete false and completely wrong. Now, it's not my job to do any of that stuff. I'm not qualified. I'm not family. I was lucky to call him friend. I wasn't his best friend. I wasn't Rick Hummer. I wasn't any, we were in a circle of confidants for cosmology. We worked together with, conferences. I wasn't in his circle of closeness of like deep friends, like some of his really, really close friends. And I was okay with that. That wasn't what, so I'm not really qualified to do any of those things.
Yeah.
And so that's the hurt that I carry, right? People say a lot of things. They've said stuff about me. They never say anything bad about you, Michael, which is great. Some people try, but ultimately nobody says anything bad about you. So I never really had to defend you, because I think when people see you in person, they're going, yeah, I'm not gonna say anything negative about Michael. He's 6'5", and
I'm not 6'5".
Yeah, you come off as 6'5". Let me put it that way. So nobody really says anything negatively about you. Plus, you want to know the biggest reason nobody says anything about you?
Why?
And I'm not trying to toot your horn. And I want to thank you. You've always been a spiritual backbone to so many, and it's due to the faith that you have is unshakable. Even when you've dealt with the hardest things in your life, of some of the things you've had to gone through, a lot of the loss in the last couple of years. And the one thing it never shakes is your faith in who you are. And spirits don't war with spirits they can't win a battle with.
True.
And I know you've grown to be that.
Yeah.
Because of the trials you've gone through. And so when spirits want to mess with other spirits, it's because they know they can win that battle.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've always wanted, we've known each other, since the late 2016, right around there. And then you ended up coming to our conference approach. And it's been not quite 10 years, but it feels like it's been 20. So yeah. I want to thank you for that. So that was me just thanking you for being authentic and genuine, because you've been an example to me to be more rock solid in my faith that I never really had. I had head knowledge in Gnosticism when it came to that stuff, but because of who you are and dealing with the battles you've dealt with, nothing shakes you from who he is. And he's the rock solid stance. And you truly believe that. And it not only does it show, we all respect you for it, and you inspire us to hopefully get to that point in your gray hair wisdom. You started off with no gray hair, had no hair. You look like me, and now you're Mr. Wisdom. So thank you, Michael. Plus, you've always been a great friend. So I wanted to thank you personally there. So we appreciate it.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's funny. We first met because of Mark Sargent.
Yeah.
Which was pretty fascinating.
Yeah, he was nice enough to share it for us, for sure.
Yep.
And that was that cohesion back then. There was a lot of cohesion.
Yep.
There was a lot of cohesion.
You call one flat earther, and you just end up talking to all of them at the same time. I mean, it was quite beautiful, actually. Yeah. And
the one thing that I wanted to jump in, because we've got about 17 minutes left before we do our typically 2-hour rant.
Yeah.
And so if you're out there, I haven't checked the chats. I don't really know how in this new system. So
there's a chat button here. Let's see.
Yeah, maybe there is a chat. Maybe we can read some of these really horrific comments. I
don't see anyone.
There we go. There's a perfect one.
Oh, there's a chat.
Michael has always been kind and down to earth in my experience. Down to flat earth. He's always been down for flat. Yes, that is true. But Michael, what is, because I think we're like in season like 4.0 at this point. Like we're like resetting. Like
yeah, right.
Only like first couple of years was like one whole season of life. When we were on Now You See TV, it was like 2 years of nonstop shows basically, and then we get to Take on the World. We kept it going. That became like 2.0, and then we sort of revitalized it during those COVID years. And now we're like into a new stage of life, right? It's now you're getting a little bit more time with, your work is, starting to dry up, and, some different things. But I think there's so much more to do. And I think what I said earlier on, and I'm going to speak for those that left cosmology, especially biblical side. If you were somebody who rejected Christ, and you left, that's your choice. I really think examining things and taking time, because everything scripturally is seasonally. It's things to be contemplated on. Sometimes they're very drastic decisions. Sometimes they're things you contemplate for a long time. Like, for example, we put on Take on the World. It wasn't
Mm,
something that I came up with in 1 month. I had it already wrapped up. This was something that was like being seeded in me for 5 or 6 years.
mm-hmm.
It was something that was like a yearning in me to do for years, and he kept putting the plug, and kept energizing me with things over and over.
Mm-hmm.
When you walk away from something so quickly, you don't allow that spirit to mold you or guide you. I really wished those that walked away early too fast, they would have given it more time.
Agreed.
I think, and ultimately, if they would have come to that understanding much later down the road, so that would be my plea. And I tell Robbie that. I would tell him, I'll tell it to his face, even though I don't get to see him to his face, but I would tell him over the phone. I've told him over the phone. That's what I would have wanted
Yeah.
for you. Then again, it's your choice. You do what you want. I think that's our next move in our direction. Where do we go with things? Do we relook at things and how we view certain information? Do we revamp some of the things that we've looked at? Said, hey, are we parroting information here, or are we really searching to get to things that we are unworthy to even be discussing in a lot of cases? Like,
I got to tell you, hold
not,
that
not
thought.
go ahead. Yeah.
And my personal view on the whole, this whole way of dealing with new information, personally for me, okay, the results they came up with were very interesting, and in some respects contradictory to what some people thought. As far as I'm concerned, I don't care. It's I find it fascinating. The whole experiment and everything is fascinating, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the truth that Yeshua has blessed us with. Okay, it doesn't change any of that. I mean, if anything, it just causes another question that we have to figure out or not. Okay, but it doesn't change any of the truth that we have been blessed with. So ultimately, it's interesting, but so what? You know?
Right, I still think it's worthy. Like, for example, we'll have the guest on to talk about information that wasn't being parroted for many years.
Yeah.
And in fact, one of the guests on a roundtable show that they did talked about some of this information on how they did answer the Arctic Sun a long time ago. What it was doing. We would always say it never existed. When you go back at the history books, you can actually find contrary information to that flat earthers spoke and had an explanation for it. Whether the explanation is true or not true, there was an explanation. And people said that there wasn't, and this couldn't be.
That's the proper reaction. Going back and say, okay, I see what they're saying, but let me do some research and figure this out. Instead of having a tissy fit over it, that's the proper way to deal with it.
Yeah. And I think that's how, for example, somebody comes new into looking deeper into other biblical topics. And then they
Okay.
start to look at Paul's writings. And then they start to examine Paul's writings.
Oh no, I
And
know
then,
what you're about to say, but go
well,
ahead.
no, but you can go so many directions with it, right? You can become anti-Paul, or you can go, no, Paul speaks against the law, no, Paul speaks for the law, and you have all
Yeah.
these different directions to go into when you look at. I mean, most everything comes from some form of Pauline doctrine, whether you agree with him,
Yep.
agree he thinks this, agree he thought that,
Exactly.
or agree
Exactly.
that he was a Freemason, shill. And then you get variances that come out of that.
Yeah.
But here's the most interesting thing about it. It's not that you stop when you because I've seen so many people start here, they'll start at this starting line and they'll say, this is where I'm rock solid in. 2 years from now, they're totally over here. Then they become so crazy and isolate their whole entire family. Then they work to get back over to where they first started, to ultimately go even away, because they've just exhausted everything. I've known so many people, and I hate to say it, who have come to my conference, who just walk away from everything because everything that they believed, they wore so much on their sleeve that they lost so many friends and family members that just turned them to go, you know what? I'm just going to live more like the world every day and just be kind to people and not worry about
yeah,
because they've lost so much, because they've done that. And then I know people who've gone so completely off the deep end to their speakers that's been a take on the world, who are totally different places. And many of them I disagree with. Some have drastically different views on certain things, and now they have ideology that I scratch my head at and go, where did that even come from? Where does that even come from? It comes from this Gnostic attitude, which all of this deals with. All of these things, why we all have it.
Salvation through knowledge.
It's not only that. It's the salvation through knowledge. It's the elevation of knowledge. It's the and when we talk about the elevation of knowledge, thinking we're better than others, the narcissistic personalities in a lot of people come out. Thus the Facebook responses, thus the attitudes online, thus this, thus that, thus the continuance of all of these different things to puff oneself up. It's all foolishness. All of it ultimately is foolishness, and it yields this ugliness that, frankly, I'm not putting words in God's mouth, but I've tried so hard to put on a Take on the World conference again, a live event, since Take on the World 2021. Because I go, we can't just be done. You can't be done. Things can't be done. He keeps shutting down doors and keeps revealing this spirit and says, I'm not working with this. I can't work with this. I can't work with that. That can't be part of this. From the attendees to the speakers. And I'm not calling out a single person. I'm just saying this mindset, people are going to take that and read into it. And if you read into it, it's because the Spirit's convicting you, and hopefully he is. Because I'm not calling out, I'm not naming names, because there is no names really to name there. I could name some. No, I'm just kidding. There is clear reasons. Every single time I try to make a move, shut down. Every single move gets shut down. Everything. Oh, let's go smaller. Let's do it smaller. Shut down. All right, let's go back. We got to do one back. Oh, 2025. That would be the most amazing year. It is, it sounds great on paper, looks great.
Sure.
COVID restrictions are all uplifted. Trump's in office, right? Boom, boom, boom. Right? There's a lot of stuff where people can go, okay, we're not going to have hard restrictions. Gas prices are low, right? There's a lot of things where you look at and go, hey, this is conducive to put on an event.
Sure.
And he says no. He keeps saying
he says no.
I don't know why.
Yeah.
All I get is this spirit. This is why I've stayed silent, because I got nothing good anybody wants to hear. And if I hear it, if I say it, people are going to be offended. You can hate me now or hate me later. The very reason why I'm shutting my mouth, why I've shut my mouth. You know, it took me so long to, if it wasn't for that Michael Tate thing, I don't think we would have come out of retirement right away, early retirement with the Sound Off crew that we just did a show with, 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
And we probably wouldn't be here today because I wouldn't have purchased this platform. And it's a funny story, even how we got this platform, because, listeners support it. Always, Chad Schaefer used to, fundraise for the channel, and we always used to get the funds to keep the channel going. And we ended up having a Take on the World bank account that we just sat there, and we thought it was completely empty. And there was exactly with $11 or something over, there was basically the exact amount to purchase this
Oh, wow.
service.
Wow.
Yeah. And so and the bank had called us and said, hey, you still have this account that's completely inactive. It's been inactive since 2021. And to be honest, all this funds were the funds for the next event, which was only a couple. These streaming platforms, you could look at them, they're like $16 a month. So they don't cost a lot of money. So, extrapolate that over 12 months, that's all we're talking that was in the bank account. So we weren't rich or anything.
Right.
But it was like, hey, this is website. It was all set aside for website fees. We completely forgot about it. And so, we lost the last platform because they raised their prices. And you said, if you want us to come back, you'll supply a way for this.
Yeah.
And then they contacted us and told us, you've got here, are you going to use this money in your account? And, because it was sitting there, we could have turned it to a savings account. We could have done anything with it, but we took that few $100s, and that's what this was designed for. We kind of knew right there, and it all happened like bang, bang, right away. So, so that he didn't shut a door for. So, so I know, and I want to publicly thank, all the people, who have done shows, the In Close Cosmology Fellowship group does shows during the time. Thank you guys for doing that. And Jeff Brannon and his wife Miranda, they do shows. They do some great interviews. You guys have really been holding down the fort. So, we lost a lot of things. Chad Schaefer show went away. Arthur show went away a few years back. So there was a lot of like turnover, change. Aaron Sampson, who was doing some stuff, he went more full-time with his job and doing well. And a lot of people are more full-time ministry and a lot of things they do. Just everybody moved on and did different things. So, so we're happy to be back. So thank you guys for being with us here tonight. I know this is
thanks for sticking with us.
This was our weakest show. Hopefully we don't do shows like this again, but I'll let you have the final word, Michael. But what I want to say is we've drawn a line in the sand of who we are and what we are. We're Bible believers first and foremost through Christ. We are children of God. We are that first and foremost. We strive to obey him, obey his ways. We strive to listen to him when he speaks. We strive to listen to what the word says when it comes to not just this topic that this show's based on, but all things in Scripture. And we want our attitudes to reflect that. We want, going into this next phase of at least creating some place where we can be rational about certain things. We can look at things and not call everything a page shill. Everything is fake. Everybody's a man. Everybody's a woman, right? That kind of mindset and mentality doesn't win us points, doesn't bring anybody over. And ultimately, when those things are proven to not be true, and you ran with it for 6, 8 months, 10 months, years, multiple years, you get a lawsuit in the mail, or this happens, that happens, and then you have egg on your face, and then you have to go tell people whatever you're going to tell them. We don't want to be that. We don't want to be those
Yeah.
people. We want to investigate things. So Antarctic stuff comes up there. Michael has a great, I think, a great opportunity. If they're doing another experiment with the curve. They're going up 130,000 feet, and they need flat earthers to pick the cameras. I think Michael's the perfect guy for that. Michael's reached out to them. Maybe they're going to take that as a sign. And what occurs from that experiment? Either Michael failed us with the wrong lens, but or they have to answer some questions. Or they have to dig in deep. I will tell you this: if they go on there and do that curve test, globe people aren't going to become flat earthers because of that. They're going to take a couple years to figure it all out.
Yeah, right.
Just as if we're on this side and they did something, we shouldn't just be running, changing our underwear.
Good point. Yeah.
Right? So the same thing. Let's be rational with these things. And I'm not calling out people. People can make their own choices and their own decisions. I'm just saying that's good advice. That's good sound advice. That is, in my opinion, it's good sound advice for all of us to take in that area. So that's what we hope to do. So we have some really cool shows planned. Maybe we can get Alexander to do a show with some content. If he can piece it together, that is the reason that we probably all met him in the first place. So maybe he'll come and do that. And we have some other things lined up. We got some interviews, some different things who've wanted to do shows. So many people reached out to us, pastors who became cosmologists.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of people. So if you guys are back out there and you do happen to see this, reach out to us again. We're back in a season of shows. We want to get with some of the people that, this new crowd of cosmology people, do some shows with them, talk about some things. And we want to rehash and bring some old people back. It'd be great to bring Nate Wolf back on and do a show with him, and some of the old gang. So that's my ending. It wasn't a rant. It wasn't anything. But Michael, I'm going to allow you with some wisdom today to end tonight with where you see us going, and what's the next step for Flat Out Insights, and what we can expect in the future from not only us but you as well.
Well, I mean, I think the main thing that we need to do with Flat Out Insights is to continue what we've always done, and that is to explore the world that Yahweh created, and the world that He's trying to educate us on, to give us more evidence and more tools to show who He is, because it's an actual reflection on Him. And that's what we need to show people. We need to actually help people with discernment, so that they can look at all the other information out there and be able to discern right from wrong and how to handle that. Okay, especially those who trust in Christ. Okay, there's a certain decorum that we have to express out there, and Flat Out Insights, we want to try to help people show that. Okay, so we're making a stand here, and that stand is Christ. That stand is His truth, and at the end of the day, In Close Cosmology is a reflection on Him, is to show who He is in more depth, which is very cool. Okay, we get to see just a little bit more of Him through this reality. So we're going to, like Chris said, bring on more interviews. I'm going to be doing some more experiments finally, because of where I live. I live on the 15th floor, and the view is amazing. And yes, that view right there, that was taken from my terrace, everyone. So I live in Akron, Ohio, and that looks like it's from another country or something, but the views are amazing. So I'm looking forward to doing some enclosed cosmology, especially curvature tests from where I live. So we have some nice items coming up that will help everyone with that cohesion, and we need to get back to that. But this time, rooted more in Christ due to this new information that we have found, and not the other way around.
Yeah, I think, with a few people that we have left in the chat, there's a few questions we can get to. If you guys have questions, go throw them out there. You guys can ask. Here's a great question I'm going to throw up on the screen.
Okay.
I'm going to throw it up there. I'll answer it. People can so if you guys want to ask, like, maybe not necessarily like questions like this, I'll take them if I can answer them. So I'll put this up here. Is there any truth to Jaron and Robbie had some kind of leverage against them from the government? I heard that, right? I cannot speak anything about Jaron. I'm not friends with the guy. To be honest with you, he wasn't like super polite to me when I met him at Flat.
No, he wasn't.
The international conference. But then again, he was in his like anti-Jesus phase at that point. Really heavy right at that point in time. And I said, I'm Chris from Take on the World Conference. And so, because we had some of the things going on at that time and some history of some things, I don't think he wasn't super nice to me. So I don't talk to him. I've never talked to him other than that one time. So I cannot speak for him whatsoever. What I can say is for Robbie, I can tell you that's a complete farce. There is absolutely no truth to that whatsoever in regards of Robbie. And I don't speak for Robbie. I'm just answering the question from my perspective of the information that I have, which sometimes I wish I didn't have all the information I have. All right. And there is one awesome one too. And I think this speaks of, what we're talking about, like when, like why one thing doesn't supersede another, which we didn't talk about, for those that are maybe new to the topic. Water still always seeks its level 100%, which we, come on, that is so obvious and so basic, but it doesn't see one so common thing, which is so valuable, right? At the end of the day, if you were to take Rick Hummer, for example, and really pin him down to that, it's the one thing that brought him to it. When you looked at the empirical evidence, that was the one thing. It's so simple. There are simple things. There are things that are outside of our scope in our realm.
Sure.
Like maybe we don't know how the movement of the sun, moon, and stars do the things that they do.
Sure.
We don't understand maybe some of the look. Antarctica is what it does for 3 months is an anomaly. It doesn't happen anywhere else. What happens in Alaska doesn't happen in other places, right? It doesn't happen. So, with the darkness, this world does anomalies. Things can have anomalies.
Sure.
So, it's okay because it doesn't still take away from the basics of things of simple things of that nature. So, I just wanted to throw that out there as, because I know we didn't get very deep into that stuff.
Sure.
If you guys got some questions, throw them out there. Throw something wild, crazy. I'm going to stay on for just a second. So, Michael does not want to go to bed because tomorrow I'll throw this out. Me and Michael are actually getting together for the first time in probably a long time.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's coming over to our place for 4th of July. So it's kind of a tradition. That's been So you can't miss it.
Fireworks, bike riding, food. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. If I could get you to go swimming in the pool, that would be, you're like, nope, don't do that. So, so any questions, Any questions from Michael? I know you guys don't want to hear me speak, but I appreciate that one. And you guys are very polite in the comment section tonight. I really appreciate that. You guys were really cool. And so, yes. So, hey, maybe one day a globe person will come in here and it'll be polite. Here is something maybe for Michael. While you're at it, consider that the circle of Earth is the rainbow and the top of the firmament is flat and it has four sides. It's as the tabernacle.
There's some possibility of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and Andy Hoyt would have a lot to say about that.
Oh yeah, you should definitely. If you don't know Andy Hoyt, check out his work. It's phenomenal. I have yet to illustrate the tabernacle yet, but Andy Hoyt's work is probably going to be a big part of that.
All right. All right. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Karen, thank you for always being part of the Take on the World family. We miss you. Phil, thanks for being here tonight. Timothy, thank you for commenting, sharing tonight. The Way Remnant, thank you for being here. And if you don't know who the Way Remnant is, you can catch him right here, Take on the World TV. That is our good friend Jeff. And I think that is it. Guys, we've had a really fun episode just for maybe me and Michael just to get back, maybe shake off a lot of rust. I don't know. Maybe that's what we've
Rust
done.
and dust.
Yeah, it's a lot of dust.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a blast. It is yeah, I'm just trying to go through here. Yeah, but hey, so guys, thank you for being here. Take on the World. I'm gonna sign off now. Michael, thank you for always for being part of Take on the World TV, being part of Flat Out Insights. And we appreciate everybody in the chat. We will see you guys soon. And if I offended you, like I said, you can hate me now, you can hate me later, but I hope I love you guys and show you guys love. So I do love you guys. I don't say I hope I love you guys. I hope I show you love. So if you were offended, if any of you Globe people were offended tonight, reach out to me and maybe I'll say the same thing to you that I said on the show, but I didn't mean any harm by it. I appreciate everybody. So you guys have a good night. Michael, thank you.
You guys have a good night.
All
You're
right.
welcome. Thank you.
Let's see if we can do this outro seamlessly.
Yes.
I don't know if we can.
New system, folks.